So for today's movie review, I'll be reviewing The Call of the Wild, and a couple of things you need to know about this particular movie review. First off, originally this was audio that was originally meant for a segment I wanted to bring back called Quick Movie Reviews. That just never happened. And second, the audio you're about to hear are my thoughts and opinions of the movie at the time of seeing it in the theater, which is significant because this was quite literally the last movie I saw in theaters before the 2020 pandemic. But anywho, The Call of the Wild, a movie that's yet another movie adaptation of the book of the same name, that's directed by the same person who directed movies like Lilo and Stitch, along with the first How to Train Your Dragon movie. And before going any further, no, I have never read the book, so I'm judging this movie as it sits. But anywho, the movie is basically about this Saint Bernard dog named Buck who gets kidnapped and shipped all the way to the Yukon during the Gold Rush. And while Buck is on different adventures with different owners, he slowly discovers his place in the world. So the immediate problems that I have with this movie starts with the usage of the CGI. Because on one hand, when it's used for stuff like the environment or atmospheric purposes, it looks great. Yet when it comes to Buck, any of the other dogs, or any other animal for that matter of fact, it doesn't look very convincing. It doesn't look bad, it just looks very mediocre. And when you see the CGI dogs interacting with any of the humans, they feel super out of place. And I know I'm not the first to say this, but why didn't this movie just use real dogs instead of CGI dogs? I mean, I can understand there are certain scenes in this movie where you need to use the CGI dogs, but I feel like in some cases you could have just used a real dog. Or if you're going to use CGI dogs, why not just make the entire movie CGI? As for the next problem that I have with the movie, it revolves around Dan Stevens, both his acting and the character he plays within the movie, for the simple reason that if I had to describe a combination of both his acting and the character he plays, he feels very reminiscent to your typical evil, greedy businessman from early Disney movies like The Love Bug or the original 1970s Pete's Dragon, in which those evil, greedy businessmen were basically cartoon villains. And it just doesn't gel well with the rest of the acting in the movie, since all the other actors, in regards to how they play their characters, while it looked like they were having fun, at least they took this source material seriously and acted like real people within the confines of this movie, unlike Dan Stevens, who basically, as mentioned before, plays a cartoon character, which is entertaining, but maybe not appropriate for this particular type of movie. Then you have Buck himself. While endearing, I thought he acted too much like a human character as opposed to a dog, because there are several points throughout this entire movie where he displays human level intelligence as opposed to a dog relying on its natural instinct. Granted, this does make Buck more identifiable, but he felt more human than dog. Although I'll say this much, the actor who does the motion capture for Buck does a really good job of emoting what the dog is thinking and feeling through a combination of facial expressions and body language without having the dog actually talk. As for the positives of the movie, I like the structure of the story because it's not what I thought it was going to be, for the simple reason that I thought it was going to be about a guy who lived in the city, got sick of living in the city, and then moved to Alaska with his dog. Nah, having the entire movie take place from the dog's point of view and seeing him go from place to place, meeting different groups of people and animals while trying to figure out where he belongs in the world. I also think it's refreshing that here's a movie where it's not about a human character, but a non-human character instead, lending itself to some creative storytelling, as mentioned before, by having the dog go from place to place, meeting different groups of people along the way. I also think that the cinematography was well done, along with the way the movie transitions from one scene to another. For example, the scene that stood out to me that had good scene transition was when you have Buck being a part of the Sled dog team, going from one town to another to deliver mail. And I think that the movie has some good visual storytelling in that sense, where even if you didn't have the characters talking and you're just looking at the movie in a visual sense, you still get an idea of what's going on through a combination of the character's facial expression or body language, regardless if it's a human or dog character. And the movie has plenty of humorous and dramatic moments sprinkled throughout the entire movie. So overall, The Call of the Wild is a heartwarming movie that's better than I was expecting it to be. And before I give my final rating, what did everyone else have to say about The Call of the Wild? So it looks like the movie got pretty average to positive reception. And for my final rating of The Call of the Wild, I give it a 3.5 out of 5. Now, apparently, while doing research on this movie, on top of it being based on a book, apparently there has been other adaptations. If so, have you seen any of them? And see you later.